was born in that summer when the sun didn't shine. I was given a name that doesn't feel like it's mine. Live my life as a good boy I was told I should be. Prayed every night to a religion that was chosen for me.
Sold my soul, broke my bones, tell me what did I get? Did my time, towed the line, ain't seen anything yet. Strike me down to the ground, you know I've seen it before. Make it hurt, I'll eat the dirt, don't care anymore.
Oh, it's me and No Life. Okay, No Life's here. That makes me happy. At least one guy's here. I've already collected all those. It's starting, right? Yeah, slash warp CN. I gotta get to the crystal nucleus. Do I have any bombs in my thing? I don't think I do. Oof. Wait, normally I do Jade. Oh, there's Sherry. We gotta murder him! Get back here. I'm gonna get you. There we go. I got his box. There's a lot of things I want that comes in boxes. Hearts, chocolates, love. Does love come in boxes? I don't know. Apple fritters. Apple fritters probably come in boxes. And there's the Money Fiesta. I should have hopped on sooner and prepped, but I did not. This was a subpar plan, or execution, should I say? But I think I can hodgepodge this together in, like, I don't know, I guess it's 2.5 hours. And I haven't really been playing much. Although after this, we will be doing Slayers. So we will be doing content. But we gotta do the mining event while, you know, it's available. We're mining away. I'm trying to think if I have anything interesting to talk about. I didn't really do much with my day besides help my grandpa on the ranch. I did get stinging nettles on my wrist. That kind of sucks. You can still feel it a little bit. But, you know, it's not the worst. You know. Having to regrow my balls every month? Now that sucks. That is not a fun thing. Some people will just never understand the issues. That's alright. Or having to, you know, retrim it every year. I don't know why it keeps growing back. Most things you cut off, they don't regrow, but that does. Every month. Or not every month, every year. That one's every year. It varies from person to person. I haven't powder farmed in a while, so my powder is not like it should be. I guess I'm getting ruby. I need glossy gemstones really bad because I haven't glossied my armor yet, so farming these now is honestly a really good thing. Stop it. Both you. I really should have just bought bombs and then just sent it in an area. And then prepared. I was playing Ranked League. I'm on a 3-game win streak, boys. I played Nasus, Singed, then Darius. Last night I lost like 3 or 4 games in a row and I was fuming. Now we're on a 3-game win streak. Okay, we're back, okay? I'm not washed, Okay, I might be a little washed, but you know. Peaked in Emerald, so I'm very happy about that. If you don't know, Emerald 4 is like the top 12% of North America players, so I'm not trash at the game, okay? I'm not trash, okay? I might not be the best, okay? I know Tyler 1, no Trick 2G, no search as... I think it's actually supposed to be Sir Chris backwards. I'm not sure. Okay, I'm not the boss. I wish I was the boss. Have you heard that man's German accent? Oh, my knees are weak after hearing that. Oh, Hans. I don't know where I'm going with this. But we're going to be doing a pretty decently long stream today, hopefully. Hopefully I won't get burnt out. I'm thinking after a mining fiesta, to keep it, you know, interesting and not dull, we're going to switch over to Slayers and try and get some Slayers done. Get back here. Because I really need to get my, whoops. I really need to get, what's it called? My Sven up. We might switch it from Sven to, Tara, but Sven is honestly more necessary right now than Tara, because I still don't have an Overflux, so I should probably get an Overflux, right? Plus, if I can get the Overflux, then I will just sink all the points from the revamp, or the reset or thing that they're doing with, I don't actually know exactly how it's going to pan out, but the attribute reset, or revamp thing, I'll sink the EXP into, floor 7s to get a Necron handle. Okay, that's what we're gonna do. I need a Necron handle, so that's what I'll probably be doing. Okay, I'm still Hyperion-less, and I haven't forgotten, I still need to do 11.5 hours of that. Okay, it's still on the to-do list, guys. Okay, I haven't completely forgotten. Just I got really burnt out and I need to take a break from Skyblock. Run to look at myself. I said, you know, man, you know the world's heading for hell. I'm not very good at singing this song, I'll be honest. Say goodbye to I believe the world is burning to the ground. Oh well. I think this is how far we've come by Matchbox 22. Or 20? Matchbox 20? Absolute banger. I actually found out about it through like a Dream animatic, or Dream SMP animatic with featuring Technoblade and stuff. It was pretty cool. And also, Technoblade's dead now, and it makes me sad. He lied to all of us. He said Technoblade never dies, but he's kind of dead. Huh. It's all gone. And all was cool. It was just all cool. Okay, is it just me that finds it kind of weird when Technoblade's dad and family do stuff with, like, his account? Like, I get it. Your son died, you're grieving. But it's also kind of weird that, like, the 20 mil thing was cool, but it's also still kind of weird that, like, you're uploading on his channel. I guess if you're trying to, like, honor his legacy, but part of me's like, that might still be a cash cow that's going. Part of me thinks that they might be trying to keep it going, not out of good faith. Which is sad to say that that's, like, the perspective I have on the world these days. But it is. But you know, maybe they're still grieving, you know, loss of a son. I can't blame them if it takes them, you know, a few years to, you know, sort it out. That's hard. That's got to be hard. I'm trying to think. I'm up to 4 bee colonies. I don't know if I mentioned that yesterday. I'm up to 4 bee colonies. I actually had 5 at one point, but I gave one away to someone who really wanted one. And also, I didn't want to overcrowd my area, considering I actually don't know how many colonies my little area can, like, upkeep. I'm thinking 30. I'm thinking I could probably keep 30 in my area and have it be fine. But I don't actually know. Because where I'm at doesn't really have a lot of flowers besides white clover. And, like, white clover's not bad, but we're also not, like, a humid area. We're very much so foggy and rainy. So I'm not actually sure how it's going to be, you know, holding up. But right now we have 3 colonies over there, and there should be plenty of stuff to keep 3 colonies going. I think it's like an acre or 2 of flowers per colony, and there's gotta be way more than that. But I don't know how densely the flowers have to be to support that many colonies, you know what I mean? Like, can it be pretty scarce or scarce? Because a lot of it's like dandelions and white clover, which I know they'll work white clover. I don't know if they'll work dandelions. The little white and yellow flowers, like the little itty bitty guys. I don't know if bees work those. And then like wild horseradish, which I know they work. That's a very common honey type for around here. Also, one of my colonies is a completely wild colony. Dude, those suckers are mean! They tried stinging me, like, immediately. They had, like, several boxes, more than what they needed, so I tried, like, reducing the size of their boxes and, like, making everything straighter. And they were like, I'm going to try and sting your legs! I'm pretty sure I'm not. I've been here for a hot moment. You like how I just ignore him? You're mining my veins. Counter argument. I keep bees. I won't find him for that. You can have that. I'll just open up this one. Look at that. It's the end of the world, time alone. I'm pretty sure Jay would yield me so much more, thing. Christine Procker? Oh, someone else asked what that is. Thank the Lord, because now I don't get to look dumb. Like, I already look dumb, okay? But now I don't look the other kind of dumb, okay? We're narrowing what kind of dumb I look, is what I'm trying to say, okay? I'm okay with being dumb, an idiot, maybe more, but, you know, it hurts. $12 TPS. Yeah, I feel that, bro. TPS is like how quickly things break and mine on this server because of like ping and lag and stuff. So you want... I don't know if it's high or low, but whatever it is right now, I know I'm feeling great. I think it's high TPS, ticks per second. Because the more ticks you have, the quicker the server's actually registering things properly. But who knows? It's tanking. Seven. Also, if anyone's watching, you can check out my bees on my YouTube channel. Link down in the description below or ! YouTube. For bees. Because I keep bees. You know, a little midlife crisis. At the ripe old age of like 20 something. Ooh, it's respawning. Sweet. Oh yeah, I'll land this side then. Aw, I drink all my Dr. Pepper! I've been drinking more Dr. Pepper than Mountain Dew lately. Don't know if that's better. It's probably not. But, you know, mixing it up, you know. Get that Baja Blast in me. The Hatsune Miku P. I'm not the only person that's heard that, right? Baja Blast being referred to as Hatsune Miku P. I can't be the only one. Okay, I'm crazy, but I'm not that crazy. Okay, I am that crazy, but not crazy and funny at the same time, okay? Just get so. Okay, we gotta reel in what kind of crazy I am, okay? I need that one ring. Chat, you're being quiet. You know that makes me lonely. How am I supposed to ramble on about schizophrenic things if you guys aren't here to listen? We're going to town. My neck is itchy. Scratchy scratch. No, I've never felt such pain in my balls before while doing this, but it's happening. The terminal testicular cancer. I blame all of you guys because I am perfect and cannot be of to fault. It definitely is not the Mountain Dew and Dr. Pepper flowing through my veins. I don't know what this song's about. I don't know if it's a breakup or someone dying. I think it's about a breakup. But also sometimes I think the song's just straight up about death. I like to think that it's a breakup because then it's less sad than if it's about someone who died. You know, like breakups are a bummer, but like they're not that bad compared to, like, you know, death. Like, songs about, like, dead children, like, that always makes me sad. Whenever I hear a song and it's about, like, someone's kid dying. When I hear a song and it's, like, my grandpa died, like, yeah, that's a bummer, but, like, you know, your grandpa was, like, 70, you know? He had a good run, okay? If it was, like, high 50s, that's a bummer, but 70... that's a pretty good run. But when a child dies, that's just sad. When an adult dies, it's less sad. Like, I'll see people be like, I'm so sad that my tweaker brother died. And it's like, okay, well, he was a tweaker. You kind of, you know, he did the drugs. You kind of expect that. You know, no one can keep up with that forever, okay? You should have been mentally prepared for this. You know, a little bit. Is that calloused? Is that messed up? I'm sure if that's not like super callous and uncouth of me. It's kind of true. Die. Every time I kill one of those guys with this pet active, it resets my heat to 0, basically. Because it never gets high enough that I need it to be reset by more. Get back here, you going goblin, I want that booty! Mmm! Gobbling up those nuts. Mmm, goblin nuts. They taste just like sheep nuts. Or Rocky Mountain oysters. You guys know what I mean? You guys should sub up because I'm unemployed and I need money. Where's the Twitch Primes? I need them. Are you blowing up my thing? That's not nice. That was kind of stinky. Whoop. I'm gonna come over here then. It was him. You can keep nuking it, dude. I do not mind. The fact that I'm like this should be mining like twice as fast, and so like the tick rate's messing me up really bad. It being just super goobery. See, this is more of a normal speed. What kind of music do you guys like listening to? Can you mine properly? Thank you. Me tries to instant break stone. Stone, how about I become invincible? Like, what are you doing? Huzzah! I was thinking maybe I should, like, multi-stream on Kick and YouTube. But I think if I use Streamlabs, they charge like a premium service for that. I don't really want to do that because the amount of money I make from Twitch a year does not cover its cost even slightly. Like if Twitch made me like, I don't know, $100 a month, yeah, I would start multi-streaming on to Kick and YouTube. But I make like $50 a year compared to $100 a month. Okay, I don't got titties. Okay, I don't have that advantageous spawn. Okay, I did not roll the lucky dice. Okay, instead I just got this massive cock that is useless. No one wants to see it. No one wants to touch it. Make it up. Whoop. I'm worried I might have to make the jump to just YouTube content and ditch Twitch. Because Twitch has been doing some wonky things lately, and we do not know how well it's going to pan out. That's supposed to spawn so much quicker. Hey, these are respawning now. Mining events always have really bad TPS. Just because of how many people are on the server at once. Because mining events are like one of the best ways to make money in the game right now, I'm pretty sure. Ooh, claim. Coal. Heartstone. Let's go. Me and my buddies all getting hard for the stone. Or something. Let's quickly mine this with my speed boost before that stinker comes over here. Nukes it all to Kingdom Come. Yellows give more money than red. That's the reason why I'm hitting the red and the yellows first. It seems like the TPS is starting to stabilize a little bit. Woo! Trying to think, do I need a ruby for anything? You guys like the band, the Chalk Eaters? They make some pretty good music. It's not really a band. It's like a collective of like a couple of dudes. They just have been the band. They almost hit 1 mil. They hit 1 mil. Good for them. The other day they were like 50K away. Oh, that's it, you're getting rowdy. You want to know the best part? Is that we're not even a half an hour in. Normally I would do this off stream and just watch a movie. I thought about putting on some Red Thread podcasts, but I'm worried that, like, I'm just gonna get more tired and sleepy. This is like mind-numbingly boring. My short hair is like messing with me. So he gave me like a fade on my neck, and so when I scratch my neck, it feels like I'm scratching like chin stub. Like stubblies. Or like sand. It's very interesting. He gave me an interesting cut. I will give him that. I did say short. I did not mean this short, but you know. This is borderline bald short, but you know, it do be a good look. That's good because I got a wedding I have to go to in about a month, so it needs to look good. Actually, exactly a month, 30 days. Streaming. This is next level content. Yeah, follow boys. Where's my pristine? Uh-oh. Oh geez, I still have these from last Jerry. Oof. When our vintage misery. No, I think it looked a little better on me. I'm not like a crazy Fall Out Boy fan, but I do think that like they're pretty good. Same with like Owl City. Like there's a lot of Owl City songs that people just don't know. They only know the one from Wreck-It Ralph, When Can I See You Again? And then I guess there's the It's Always a Good Time with Carly Rae Jepsen. And then Fireflies. But they still have a couple of others, like Shooting Star. He does a couple of Christian covers. Those are pretty good. He's got like a very synthetic, calm medley thing going on. It's pretty good. I think he's a little underrated because everyone just knows him as the Fireflies guy, but he's got some other bangers. Only like, I'd say 2 or 3 outside of the Christian sphere and his main 3 that he's known for. So I'm not saying like he's crazy good, but I feel like a lot of people just overlook a couple of his other songs. Oh, Jerry can spawn from these? I didn't know that. Yeah, I'm gonna skip this song. You guys like my tunes? My rockin' tunes? And picture me without you, but I can't. I guess Immortals is a Fallout song. Immortals, Century, Phoenix. Oh, there's another one. I just can't remember it. Oh, the lead singer of Fall Out Boys also does a character in Star vs. the Force of Evil. He plays like the bard character, and that character sings some fire songs, some absolute bangers, absolute peak cinema. Ooh, that's a gold Jerry. Give me your box. I need it. Yeah. I only gotta kill a couple more. What? Oh, I see. I feel like this one was mine. Come on, give me up. I hate this game. There we go. Is he only mining Ruby? Only. Oh no. There we go. I'm gonna be super cringe. You know, hit him with the little silly emoticon faces. Hey! Just leveled up Skyblock. Skyblock, level up. Woo! I'm so pretty that you're gone so soon. Hakuna Matata. Oh, that's not even related. My brain's just got Hakuna Matata. What a wonderful phrase in my head. Maybe I should watch The Lion King. The King of Lions. There we go. Got him. My dogs are freaking out over the wind. It must have been the wind. That was playing earlier. If you missed it. I don't know if you had, but if you have... Pee-pee house. Pee-pee hose. There's literally no one. Like, what is going on? It's so quiet. What is this? Another Golden Jerry? That's two very quickly. wish the song had less bad words. 'Cause it is a good song. It's a good beat. See, I'm running for that life. Between the eyes, hit 'em right between the eyes. See, I'm running for their lives. "21 guns. Trying to talk to this person that might be a girl, and if so, this person making it hard. Not really giving me anything to work with. Like, I'm trying. I'm shooting comments, trying to get, like, interesting conversation going. And I don't know if it's, like, me or if it's that other person, but I feel like I'm just whipping. Like, I'll send a message and then it'll take like a few hours to respond. I'm like, okay. They'll say they're online too, and I'll see that they'll be online for a while, and they just don't respond. I'm like, I think it might be me, chat. I might be cooked. Oh, I activated my speed boost. $31? 21 guns. I gotta go pee, but I know as soon as I go pee, chat's gonna go crazy. Earth is not what I wanted. How much longer does this have? Oh, I'm getting close to being halfway through. I can't control it. Close it in the holes. Yeah, I'm gonna be right back, chat. I gotta use the bathroom. Real quick. Ooh, that's scary. And my balls grew 3 inches that day. Sorry, I was just reading someone a bedtime story. Don't bark at the children having fun outside. Oof. There we go. Give me up. I'm running out of backpack space. Here we go. Here's some room for Topaz. I'm not superhuman. I like her voice and her singing style. It's got like the right amount of like weird distortion just to be a banger. This is definitely a grind. Just me and no life. Heroes, they may rest in time. You're ready to die. You're your own enemy. Dude, I burnt the top of my mouth today eating some pizza. Oof! Love is life. This will save me just in time. Dude, I overlooked Skillet for a long time, and now I'm listening to Skillet, and I'm like, did I overlook you? Get me up! There we go. Let me just open up a bit of an area up around here. Now I need you. Take myself. It's very important I kill green Jerry's. Oh, did you guys see that? That was a quick reaction time. Me through this nightmare. I can't control myself. Inside of me. Aw. I accidentally activated my speed boost when I didn't want to. I wasted part of it. It's so wasteful. Chat. Do you guys like to give cows boops? I petted a horse today. I gave him little boops, some little pets. He seemed nice. He could have been a commie sympathizer, but you know, he seemed nice. He seemed like a nice horse. Hey, Boo! Can you stop that dog? Thank you. Hey, I said stop it. Do you think Mike Tyson always had a lisp, or do you think it was from the blunt force brain damage that he received several times over? That's how I become myself. Wash away what I've done. I feel like this could become like an awesome Christian rock parody if someone tried. I feel like it wouldn't even be all that hard. Like, they set you up for it pretty well with this song to do that. Another hour and a half. Alright, Jasmine, stop that. Not feeling New Divide. But End of Me, this one's not bad. Dude, not a single chatter today. Am I washed? I'm losing steam, chat. With how quiet it is, dude, I'm losing steam. There's these two little things? I guess that's not so little. Chat, you guys give me something to do. This song has been associated with running away from the demon core when it clicks, from the flashbang it gives off. Isn't that interesting? That's not how I found it, but it is interesting. Please some of these less than an hour. Ah, it's 55 minutes. It's barely less than an hour. Okay. Let me try something. This. Okay, we're gonna watch this.
What if there was a story that simply reading it would drive you mad? What if this story disguised itself as a simple play, only to lure in new readers to have them succumb to its evil? And what if this story went on to infect other stories around it, eventually changing art, people
No,
the
that's not what I
world as a
want.
whole. Well, I'm here to tell you that that story doesn't exist. But for some reason, we keep talking about it. Hello, everybody. Today we're talking about the forbidden fable of the King in Yellow and its consequences across media as we know it. The King in Yellow is a collection of short stories that was published by Robert Chambers in 1895. The through line of
If I push this, what are you? A little pop out. Whatever.
the short stories being that of a fictional play called The King in Yellow. Across the short stories in Chambers' book, we see how the King in Yellow is a forbidden mimetic entity that infests the mind of anyone who comes across it. However, you've probably encountered the King in Yellow before, you just didn't know it. Chambers' book went on to inspire a ton of other horror writers, people like H.P. Lovecraft. And the concepts that Chambers mentions in this short story were incredibly ahead of their time in 1895. Things like cognito hazards or mimetic entities or info hazards. So, of course, Chambers' writing went on to inspire a ton of media that came after him. But it's not only Chambers' book, The King in Yellow, that has outlived the author himself, but it is The King in Yellow within The King in Yellow that has lived on as well. This unspeakable entity has shown up in dozens of stories over the past several years, all of which reference the same forbidden story that Chambers did all the way back in 1895. So many different pieces of art that I guarantee you've come across before, reference the same monster and story that's never even been told. So why is that? Why is a story that has never existed behind so many of the stories that we know today?
There we go. That's close enough for me.
We're going to talk about the short stories within The King in Yellow, and from there talk about how it's worked its way into so many different pieces of media. And talk about how a creature who is said to infect the mind of artists who encounter it has done the same thing in the real world. A couple of announcements to get out of the way before we begin. For one, I've begun uploading my YouTube videos to Spotify. So if you prefer watching over there, full audio and video copies of everything I post to YouTube will be over there after it's uploaded here. There's been a few unofficial accounts that have uploaded my videos to Spotify, so to clarify, the one that I have linked in the description is the only official Wendigoon Spotify channel. So again, if you prefer to watch there, feel free to do so, and I hope you enjoy. The second thing to mention is you are about to get a lot more Wendigoon content, for better or worse. And that'll begin a little over a week from now on April the 29th on my other channel, Wendigang. There's a ton of topics that
I do watch the Wendigang channel quite a bit. It's pretty good.
Just don't fit the bill for a ridiculously long ramble over here on the main channel. So I've taken those topics and put together a team of researchers and writers to help me put together scripts so that I can still cover things I find interesting just in a more concise and shorter format. And again, short for me means less than an hour. We're very excited to show you what we've been working on, and to spoil the first topic, it's about the Kansas City Chiefs fan who dressed as a wolf to all of the
Watched it.
games,
Banger video.
and also robbed several banks on his way to those games. Again, that'll be up on Wendigang Tuesday, April the 29th, with hopefully
It's like something straight out of a
uploads to
movie.
follow, or at least every other week in the beginning as we still iron out some wrinkles. So be sure you're subscribed over there if you're interested, and thank you all so much for allowing me to go on these weird little projects of mine. It means a lot. Back to our topic for today, forbidden knowledge and mind parasites that very well might be real sound interesting to you, then stick around after the ad as we break down the horrors of the King in Yellow. And another piece of forbidden knowledge is food that's good for you, delicious, easy to make, and won't break the bank. Or at least it was before today's sponsor.
Nope, that's not what I want.
Projects of mine. It means a lot. Back to our topic for today. To you meals straight to the or are 17 misses for me before I had a chance to act. If you want to get in, code FEAR first off plus answering the channel. Their link is in the description, and we are now back to the video. We are going to go ahead and get into it, but as always, thank you for watching. So to clarify, The King in Yellow is both the name of Chambers' book as well as the fictional story within the book. And we do get some small excerpts from this lost story. As a matter of fact, The King in Yellow opens with a passage from the fictional King in Yellow, the passage known as Casilda's Song. Along the shore the cloud waves break, the twin suns sink behind the lake, the shadows lengthen in Carcosa. Strange is the night where black stars rise and strange moons circle through the skies. But stranger still is lost Carcosa, songs that the high age shall sing, where flap the tatters of the king, must die unheard in dim Carcosa. Song of my soul, my voice is dead. die thou unsung as tears unshed, shalt dry and die in lost Carcosa. We will see other excerpts from this fictional story as well, but this is by far the longest. Immediately, this sounds like we're on some kind of alien planet. We have mentions of
I was thinking a
twin
ship.
suns and black stars and strange moons. And
Like that part,
wherever this
yeah, but it's not.
Carcosa
It gives me
it
ship
seems to
vibes.
be
That
the
story.
home of the king, or at least the tatters of the king. A lot of the language used sounds very apocalyptic. Mentions of my voice being dead, and tears are unshed, and they shall dry and die in lost Carcosa. It seems that whatever
Carcosa.
was,
That
was
alone
something
sounds
that
like a
is now
place.
past. Also,
and like
we have the
a
title
ship.
of this poem itself, Casilda's Song. Who was Casilda? Was she a resident of Carcosa, or just someone who's heard about it like us? We'll get more of an idea around Carcosa and the King in Yellow as we dive into some of Chamber's stories. As mentioned in the intro, The King in Yellow is an anthology, with the through line of the stories in the anthology, or at least the first 4, being this fictional play, The King in Yellow. If any of this is confusing, I swear it'll be cleared up with our first short story, so let's go ahead and get into it. Our first story is called The Repairer of Reputations, and it opens with a quote from a French book, the title of which I'll show on screen now. Translated, the quote reads, "Do not mock the fools. Their madness lasts longer than ours. That is the only difference." So a quote saying that the only difference between us and those that we consider insane is that their insanity just sticks around. Something to keep in mind as we read this story. The Repairer of Reputations takes place in 1920s New York. And since Chambers published this book in 1895, he is describing a world a few decades into the future. In setting up this future United States,
I just realized if someone
we'll meet in a minute,
follows me, they won't be able to see it.
That
So we'll put it in that corner instead. Sorry, guys.
He says that Cuba, Hawaii, and Samoa were bought by the United States, which is a pretty good guess. And the craziest thing he gets right is when he says on the first page, the war with Germany, incident on that country's seizure of the Samoan Islands, had left no visible scars upon the Republic. So other than the seizure of the Samoan Islands part, he was right that in 1920 we would just be getting out of a war with Germany. And initially, everything seems to be great in this new future. They describe how old architecture was being destroyed, and these beautiful new structures and bridges and parks throughout cities had made living there so much better. However, the first cracks of this futuristic world show up on the second page. We had profited well by the latest treaties with France and England. The exclusion of foreign-born Jews as a measure of self-preservation. The settlement of the new independent black state of Swanee, checking of immigration, the new laws concerning naturalization, and the gradual centralization of power in the executive all contributed to national calm and prosperity. When the government solved the Indian problem and squadrons of Indian cavalry scouts in native costume were substituted for the pitiable organizations tacked on to the tale of skeletonized regiments by a former Secretary of War, the nation drew a long sigh of relief. When, after the colossal congress of religions, bigotry, and intolerance were laid in their graves, and kindness and charity began to draw warring sects together, many thought the millennium had arrived, at least in the New World, which after all, is a world by itself. So while you could just read that as, this book was written in the 1890s, maybe that level of isolation was just
1890s and predicting a world war against Germany that came out relatively unscathed is kind of crazy.
Paragraph. But 2, because Chambers specifically mentions that this new world is one without bigotry or intolerance, which it seems purposeful to place that sentence right after the sentence that said everyone who wasn't the same ethnicity or shared the same ideas was kicked out. The world seems to be resting on a kind of hypocrisy, one that becomes apparent on the next page. In the city of New York, the summer of 1899 was signalized by the dismantling of the elevated railroads. The summer of 1900 will live in the memories of New York people for many a cycle. The Dodge statue was removed in that year, and the following winter began that agitation for the repeal of the laws prohibiting suicide, which bore its final fruit in the month of April 1920. When the first government leaflet
They already did that
chamber
in
was
Canada.
opened on Washington Square. So all that mention of this perfect futuristic New York City, and then the mention that the government has installed a lethal chamber. What is a lethal chamber, you may ask? It is exactly what you think it is, a chamber that you walk in and die. It's from here that our protagonist begins to talk about himself. Our protagonist is a man named Hildred Castaigne. And in the first few paragraphs that Hildred talks about himself, we get a lot of information not only about him, but about this King in Yellow. I'd walked down that day from Dr. Archer's house on Madison Avenue. where I had been as a mere formality. Ever since that fall from my horse, 4 years before, I had been troubled at times with pains in the back of my head and neck, but now for months they had been absent, and the doctor sent me away that day saying there was nothing more to be cured in me. It was hardly worth his fee to be told that. I knew it myself. Still, I did not grudge him the money. What I minded was the mistake which he made at first. When they picked me up from that pavement where I lay unconscious, and somebody had mercifully sent a bullet through my horse's head, I was carried to Dr. Archer, and he, pronouncing my brain affected, placed me in his private asylum where I was obliged to endure treatment for insanity. At last, he decided that I was well, and I, knowing that my mind had always been as sound as his, if not sounder, paid my tuition, as he jokingly called it, and left. I told him, smiling, that I would get even with him for his mistake. He laughed heartily, and asked me to call once in a while. I did so, hoping for a chance to even up accounts, but he gave me none, and I told him I would wait. So 4 years ago, Hildred fell from his horse in an accident that was bad enough that the horse had to be put down. And according to Hildred, he was always of a sound mind, but regardless, this evil Dr. Archer committed him to an asylum. And Hildred says that he is hoping to even accounts with Dr. Archer, whatever that means. While Hildred frames it as a good thing, he does admit that the fall did change him. As right after this he says, "The fall from my horse had fortunately left no evil results. On the contrary, it had changed my whole character for the better. From the lazy young man about town, I had become active, energetic, temperate, and above all else, ambitious. There was only one thing which troubled me. Laughed at my own uneasiness, and yet it troubled me." So according to Hildred, this accident was a good thing. But what is it that troubled him? Well, here we get our first mention in this story of the King in Yellow. During my convalescence, I had bought and read for the first time The King in Yellow. I remember after finishing the first act that it occurred to me that I had better stop. I started up and flung the book into the fireplace. The volume struck the barred gate and fell open on the hearth in the firelight. If I had not caught a glimpse of the opening words in the second act, I should never have finished it. As I stooped to pick it up, my eyes became riveted to the open page. With a cry of terror, or perhaps it was of joy so poignant that I suffered in every nerve, I snatched the thing out of the coals and crept shaking to my bedroom, where I read it and reread it, and wept and laughed and trembled with a horror which at times assails me yet. This is the thing that troubles me. So while committed to an asylum, Hildred read The King in Yellow. And although he says the first act didn't have an effect on him, he was still compelled to throw it into the fireplace. But as soon as he saw the opening words of the second act, he was transfixed. Think about it. He just saw a few words in the second act, and from there began crying and dragged the book to his bedroom. And then we know after his asylum stay that he completely changed as a person. Again, for the better according to him, as far as we know now. As far as his description of this book, The King in Yellow itself, or the play that is, again, to clarify, The King in Yellow is both Chambers' book, the fictional play / book in the story, and the character within the fictional play / book in the real book. So when describing this play, this is all that Hildred says. "This is the thing that troubles me. For I cannot forget Carcosa, where black stars hang in the heavens, where the shadows of men's thoughts lengthen in the afternoon, when the twin suns sink into the lake of Hali, and my mind will bear forever the memory of the pallid mask. I pray God will curse the writer, as the writer has cursed the world with this beautiful, stupendous creation, terrible in its simplicity, irresistible in its truth, a world which now trembles before the King in Yellow." So we see some similarities between what Hildred is describing and Casilda's song mentioned in the opening. The twin suns, Lake of Hali. We get a mention of something called the pallid mask, which will be a recurring theme throughout some of the stories, or in other words, a pale mask. Many interpret the pallid mask as what the King in Yellow himself wears, but again, that's up for interpretation. Again, we get glimpses of this fictional story, but we never actually see it. Just the effect it has on people who do see it. And it seems that Hildred isn't the only one who has had a profound effect because of this story. When the French government seized the translated copies which had just arrived in Paris, London, of course, became eager to read it. It is well known how the book spread like an infectious disease from city to city, from continent to continent, barred out here, confiscated there, denounced by press and pulpit.
Dude, this
censored even
story
by the
gives me
most
like
advanced of
SCP
literary
vibes.
Anarchists. No definite principles had been violated in those wicked pages. No doctrine promulgated. No convictions outraged. It cannot be judged by any known standard, yet, although it was acknowledged that the supreme note of art had been struck in The King in Yellow, all felt that human nature could not bear the strain, nor thrive on words in which the essence of purest poison lurked. The very banality and innocence of the first act only allowed the blow to fall afterward with more awful effect. So the entire world has developed a stigma around this book. Even though no one can say explicitly what is wrong with it, everything from churches to news sources are saying it shouldn't be touched. There's translations being made in France that are confiscated by the police because the book is banned there. According to Hildred, everyone admits that it is supreme art, but they also all say that no one should touch it. So perhaps the book is just floating around in secretive circles. Perhaps it's coming into people's hands, like Hildred when he just so happened to buy it while he was in an asylum. And while it seems that the book has been widely banned, there are effects in this world that seem to come from the book itself. As mentioned earlier, we have a society that says it's free of bigotry and intolerance after it got rid of everyone they don't want to tolerate. And the most striking insanity is that of the lethal chamber. Hildred says that the lethal chamber was built in Washington Square, and in front of the lethal chamber is a beautiful garden surrounded by restaurants and cafes. He says that the chamber itself has 6 ionic columns and a massive bronze door. He also says a splendid marble group of fates stood before the door, the work of a young American sculptor, Boris Yvain, who had died in Paris when only 23 years old. Keep that in mind for a later story. As Hildred is walking through the square, there's an inauguration ceremony for the lethal chamber. At this inauguration are several government officials, including the governor, who is giving a speech as Hildred passes. The governor was finishing his reply to the short speech of the Surgeon General. I heard him say, "The laws prohibiting suicide and providing punishment for any attempt at self-destruction have been repealed. The government has seen fit to acknowledge the right of man to end an existence which may have become intolerable to him through physical suffering or mental despair. It is believed that the community will be benefited by the removal of such people from their midst. Since the passage of this law, the number of suicides in the United States has not increased. Now the government has determined to establish a lethal chamber in every city, town, and village in the country. It remains to be seen whether or not that class of human creatures, from whose desponding ranks new victims of self-destruction fall daily, will accept the relief thus provided." He paused and turned to the white lethal chamber. The silence in the street was absolute. "There a painless death awaits him who can no longer bear the sorrows of this life. If death is welcome, let him seek it there." Then quickly, turning to the military aide of the president's household, he said, "I declare the lethal chamber open." And again, facing the vast crowd, he cried in a clear voice, "Citizens of New York and of the United States of America, through me, the government declares the lethal chamber to be open." Again, we have the removal of the unwanted framed as a good thing. The governor even said it is believed that the community will be benefited by the removal of such people from their midst. Now, there's 2 ways to look at this. For one, it can just be the general madness of the world around Hildred on display. If the King in Yellow is affecting society to a great degree, then that explains why it gets to a place where the government builds these beautiful structures and proclaims its own opulence. And if you don't like it, please see yourself out. The other way to see it is that maybe people are going so mad from reading The King in Yellow that society has nothing else it can do with them. Maybe it's not the government and powers that be that are infected by the madness of The King in Yellow. Maybe it's just that people who are affected are such a problem that the government felt it right to build lethal chambers. It's also never explained what's actually inside of a lethal chamber, or how it kills you. My running theory is it's like the giant gray brick things in Mario. With big spikes in the face on them. Like you walk into the lethal chamber and it's quiet for a minute, and then just like a 40-ton boulder smashes you, and then it just resets.
I like to think electrocution.
I guess it could also be like a gun or something, but I like my version better. After this, Hildred Castaigne goes to an armorer's shop ran by a man named Hauberg. When Hildred walks into the shop, Hauberg says, "Come in, Mr. Castaigne," and quickly, Hauberg's daughter, Constance, stands up and turns the corner to greet him, only to be disappointed when she sees that it's Hildred. Hildred explains to us that this is because Constance is in love with Hildred's cousin, Louis Castaigne, and Louis is currently on a deployment with the military, but is due to be home soon. Hildred says he loves to be in the armorer's shop to hear the clinking of metal and see the restoration and creation of pieces of armor. Despite this, however, he says he doesn't care for Hauberg or his daughter Constance. As a matter of fact, he says on page 6, "I love to hear the music of steel brushing against steel, the mellow shock of the mallet on thigh pieces, and the jingle of chain armor. That was the only reason I went to see Hauberg. He had never interested me personally, nor did Constance, except for the fact of her being in love with Louis. This did occupy my attention, and sometimes even kept me awake at night. But I knew in my heart that all would come right, and that I should arrange their future as I expected to arrange that of my kind doctor, John Archer." What? For some reason, Louis and Constance being in love with each other bothers Hildred a lot, and he says he's going to arrange their future in the same way he plans to arrange the future for Dr. Archer, which is probably not a good thing. After small talk, Hildred tells us that the real reason he's there is to see the man who lives above the armorer's shop, a man named Mr. Wilde. When Hildred begins to make his way upstairs, the following conversation takes place. "Are you going upstairs to see the lunatic again?" laughed old Hauberg. If Hauberg knew how I loathe the word lunatic, he would never use it in my presence. It rouses certain feelings within me which I do not care to explain. However, I answered him quietly. "I think I shall drop in and see Mr. Wilde for a moment or two." "Poor fellow," said Constance with a shake of the head. "It must be hard to live alone year after year, poor, crippled, and almost demented. It is very good of you, Mr. Castaigne, to visit him as often as you do." "I think he is vicious," observed Hauberg, beginning again with his hammer. I listened to the golden tinkle on the greave plates. When he had finished, I replied, "No, he is not vicious, nor is he in the least demented. His mind is a wonder chamber, from which he can extract treasures that you and I would give years of our life to acquire." Hauberg laughed. I continued, a little impatiently, "He knows history as no one else could know it. Nothing, however trivial, escapes his search, and his memory is so absolute, so precise in details, that were it known in New York that such a man existed, the people could not honor him enough." "Nonsense," muttered Hauberg, searching on the floor for a fallen rivet. "Is it nonsense?" I asked, managing to suppress what I felt. "Is it nonsense when he says that the tassets and cuissards of the enameled suit of armor commonly known as the Prince's Emblazoned can be found among a mass of rusty theatrical properties, broken stoves, and rag pickers' refuse in a garret in Pell Street?" Hauberg's hammer fell to the ground, but he picked it up and asked, with a great deal of calm, how I knew that the tassets and left cuissard were missing from the Prince's Emblazoned. "I did not know until Mr. Wilde mentioned it to me the other day. He said that they were in the garret of 998 Pell Street." "Nonsense," he cried, but I noticed his hand trembling under his leather apron. "Is this nonsense too?" I asked pleasantly. "Is it nonsense when Mr. Wilde continually speaks of you as the Marquise of Avonshire, and of Miss Constance?" I did not finish, for Constance had started to her feet with terror written on every feature. Hauberg looked at me and slowly smoothed his leather apron. "That is impossible," he observed. "Mr. Wilde may know a great many things." "About armor, for instance, and the Prince Emblazoned?" I interposed, smiling. "Yes," he continued slowly. "About armor also, maybe, but he is wrong in regard to the Marquise of Avonshire, who, as you know, killed his wife's traducer years ago, and went to Australia where he did not long survive his wife." "Mr. Wilde is wrong," murmured Constance. Her lips were blanched, but her voice was sweet and calm. "Let us agree, if you please, that in this one circumstance, Mr. Wilde is wrong," I said. So, a lot of context there. Whoever this Mr. Wilde is upstairs, Constance and Hauberg think that he's mad. This angers Hildred, who can barely suppress his rage, not only at the mention of Mr. Wilde being mad, but just at the mention of words like lunatic. And maybe the truth is somewhere in the middle, between him being an all-knowing sage and a madman. Because according to Hobart, Mr. Wild is right that this piece of armor does have some missing components. And we're going to find out later in the story that Mr. Wild was right about those missing pieces being exactly where Wild said they'd be. But then Wild also accused Hobart of being a guy who murdered his wife's partner and then died in Australia. And that is never brought up again. So I guess we're to assume that's right. That Hobart killed the man who was sleeping with his wife and then changed his name. Regardless, Hobart and Constance seem to think that Mr. Wild is mad, and Hildred gets really upset at that idea. So Hildred goes upstairs and opens a door at the end of the hallway, and Mr. Wild lets him in. And at our first description of Mr. Wild, we can probably see why other people have the opinion of him that they do. When it says on page 10, when he had double locked the door and pushed a heavy chest against it, he came and sat down beside me, peering up into my face with his little light-colored eyes. Half a dozen new scratches covered his nose and cheeks, and the silver wires which supported his artificial ears had become displaced. I thought I had never seen him so hideously fascinating. He had no ears. The artificial ones, which now stood out at an angle from the fine wire, were his one weakness. They were made of wax and painted a shell pink. The rest of his face was yellow. He might better have reveled in the luxury of some artificial fingers for his left hand, which was absolutely fingerless, but it seemed to cause him no inconvenience, and he was satisfied with his wax ears. So the dude is yellow. He's later described as like a sickly appearance. So I imagine yellow like seasick or like jaundiced yellow. And he has no ears. He has fake ones that are held on by silver wire. He has no fingers, just like, I guess, nubs for hands. And then he goes on to say he was very small, scarcely higher than a child of 10, but his arms were magnificently developed, and his thighs as thick as any athlete's. Still, the most remarkable thing about Mr. Wild was that a man of his marvelous intelligence and knowledge should have such a head. It was flat and pointed, like the heads of many of those unfortunates whom people imprison in asylums for the weak-minded. Many called him insane, but I knew him to be as sane as I was. That line hits so much harder on a second read. So he lives in the top room above this armor's building, and he's described as like a goblin. But it gets even weirder because then he says, I do not deny that he was eccentric. The mania he had for keeping that cat and teasing her until she flew at his face like a demon was certainly eccentric. He then, in describing a fight he witnessed between Mr. Wild and the cat, said that one time, before I could move, she flattened her belly to the ground, crouched, trembled, and sprang into his face. Howling and foaming, they rolled over and over on the floor, scratching and clawing until the cat screamed and fled under the cabinet, and Mr. Wild turned over on his back, his limbs contracting and curling up like the legs of a dying spider. So this dude just lives in this upper loft in New York City, has a cat that almost kills him constantly. I guess that's why he doesn't have ears or fingers. The cat took him at some point. We then get a description of what Mr. Wild does and find out that he is the character whom the story is named after, the repairer of reputations. Because apparently, Mr. Wild has a business repairing the reputations of people who had had their reputation damaged. According to him, people send letters and money to seek out his service. In an example he gives, he says, P. Green Dusenberry, Minister of the Gospel, Fair Beach, New Jersey. Reputation damaged in the Bowery. To be repaired as soon as possible. Retainer $100. So Mr. Wild apparently sets about making these people have a higher
Back then, $100 was a lot more. That was a couple grand.
500 men in his employ, and he describes these retainers as being $100 to $500 at a time. So if a dude who has 500 employees and is making that much money in 1890s money, then what is he doing in a rundown apartment above an armorer's shack with a cat that tries to kill him? He later says that everyone from high-profile businessmen to politicians seek out his service, or at least that's what he tells Hildred. While Hildred and Mr. Wild are talking, someone knocks on the door before Mr. Wild sends him away. When Hildred asks who that was, Mr. Wild says that it is Arnold Stylette, owner and editor-in-chief of the Great New York Daily, which would be quite impressive if that guy was coming to Mr. Wild, but again, Hildred never actually saw him, just someone on the other side of a door. Hildred then asks Mr. Wild, where are the notes? and Mr. Wilde hands him a copy of The Imperial Dynasty of America. From there, Hildred says this: "One by one, I studied the well-worn pages, worn only by my own handling, and although I knew all by heart from the beginning, when from Carcosa, the Hyades, Hastur, and Aldebaran, to Castaigne, Louis de Calvados, born December 19th, 1877. I read it with an eager, rapt attention, pausing to repeat parts of it aloud, and dwelling especially on Hildred de Calvados, only son of Hildred Castaigne and Edith Landis Castaigne, first in succession, etc., etc. When I finished, Mr. Wilde nodded and coughed. Speaking of your legitimate ambition, he said, how do Constance and Louis get along? She loves him, I replied simply. The cat on his knee suddenly turned and struck at his eyes, and he flung her off and climbed onto the chair opposite me. And Dr. Archer, but that's a matter you can settle any time you wish, he added. Yes, I replied. Dr. Archer can wait, but it is time I saw my cousin Louis. It is time, he repeated. Then he took another ledger from the table and ran over the leaves rapidly. We are now in communication with 10,000 men, he muttered. We can count on 100,000 within the first 28 hours, and in 48 hours, the state will rise in mass. The country follows the state, and the portion that will not, I mean California and the Northwest, might better never have been inhabited. I shall not send them the yellow sign. The blood rushed to my head, but I only answered, a new broom sweeps clean. The ambition of Caesar and of Napoleon pales before that which could not rest until it had seized the minds of men and controlled even their unborn thoughts, said Mr. Wilde. You are speaking of the King in Yellow, I groaned with a shudder. He is a king who emperors have served. I am content to serve him, I replied. Mr. Wilde sat rubbing his ears with his crippled hand. Perhaps Constance does not love him, he suggested. Okay, so piece by piece. First of all, this Imperial Dynasty of America seems to be a sort of plan. Initially, we get mentions to things related to Casilda's song, or the fictional King in Yellow, mentions of Carcosa and Hyades and Hastur. But because this is a sort of game plan or prophecy, it has mentions of the future, as it mentions Hildred's son, who is to be Hildred de Calvados, after Hildred Castaigne has a child with Edith Landis Castaigne, whoever that might be. But it seems that Hildred's cousin Louis has some piece in this plan as well. Not only is his name
Where's my mining spot?
mentioned
I
in
thought
the
it was right
Imperial
down
Dynasty
here.
of America, but as soon as Hildred gets done reading the Imperial
Nope,
Dynasty
not that
of
one.
America, that's when Mr. Wilde asks, how do Constance and Louis get along? And he also says that Hildred can settle his deal with Dr. Archer whenever he wants. It can be assumed, given the title of these notes, that the Imperial Dynasty details a sort of coup that is to take place, and that this coup specifically is for the King in Yellow. A concept
Yellow is
and
right
ambition
here,
that is
but
greater
not-
in mind than Caesar and Napoleon, as Mr. Wilde says. And according to Mr. Wilde, as a part of this coup, he's in communication with 10,000 men who are going to start, I guess,
This is it.
grassroots movements in order to help the coup take effect, and that areas that will not go in line with this coup will not be sent the yellow sign. But whatever this plan is, again, Louis and Constance's romance has some effect on it. The two are cut off by the sound of music from a parade on the street below. Hildred looks out the window to see that Louis's regiment has arrived back from their deployment. Mr. Wilde remarks that Hildred needs to talk to Louis, and Hildred leaves to go back to his home. It's after Hildred gets home on page 14 that we get this interesting description. Here I lunched comfortably, read the Herald and the Meteor, finally went to the steel safe in my bedroom and set the time combination. The 3 3/4 minutes which it is necessary to wait while the time lock is opening are to me golden moments. From the instant I set the combination to the moment when I grasp the knobs and swing back the solid steel doors, I live in an ecstasy of expectation. Those moments must be like moments passed in paradise. I know what I am to find at the end of the time limit. I know what the massive safe holds secure for me alone, and the exquisite pleasure of waiting is hardly enhanced when the safe opens and I lift from its velvet crown a diadem of purest gold, blazing with diamonds. I do this every day, and yet the joy of waiting and at last touching again the diadem only seems to increase as the days pass. It is a diadem fit for a king among kings, an emperor among emperors. The king in yellow might scorn it, but it shall be worn by his royal servant. I held it in my arms until the alarm in the safe rang harshly, and then tenderly, proudly, I replaced it and shut the steel doors. So every day Hildred goes to this safe and gets out a diadem, or effectively a crown, puts it on his head, enjoys the ecstasy of it, as you heard, and then puts it back in the safe. Again, we're getting clues of a coup, we're getting clues of some grand plan, and we're getting Hildred's obsession with wearing a crown. After this, Hildred goes and looks out the window of his apartment, and from his apartment window, he can see the lethal chamber at Washington Square. And it's here that it seems the lethal chamber has its first customer. As I was turning carelessly away, a slight commotion in the group of curious loiterers around the gates attracted my attention. A young man had entered and was advancing with nervous strides along the gravel path which leads to the bronze doors of the lethal chamber. He paused a moment before the fates, and as he raised his head to those three mysterious faces, the pigeon rose from its sculptured perch, circled about for a moment, and wheeled to the east. The young man pressed his hand to his face, and then with an undefinable gesture sprang up the marble steps. The bronze doors closed behind him, and half an hour later, the loiterers slouched away. The frightened pigeon returned to its perch in the arms of fate. So again, we don't know exactly what happens in the lethal chamber, but we know that people go in there to die. I like this little moment right after we see Hildred's madness of putting the crown on his head and feeling the ecstasy of it. We see another example of the madness of the King in Yellow as someone makes their way into the lethal chamber. After this, Hildred goes to see his cousin Lewis, and we're immediately shown how different the two men are. As I crossed the central driveway, a group of officers passed, and one of them called out, "Hello, Hildred," and came back to shake hands with me. It was my cousin Lewis, who stood smiling and tapping his spurred heels with his riding whip. "Just back from Westchester," he said. "Been doing the bucolic, milk and curds, and, you know, dairy maids and sunbonnets who say, 'Aw,' and 'I don't think,' when you tell them they're pretty. I'm nearly dead for a square meal at Delmonico's. What's the news?" "There is none," I replied pleasantly. "I saw your regiment coming in this morning." "Did you? I didn't see you. Where were you?" "In Mr. Wilde's window." "Oh, hell," he began impatiently. "That man is stark mad. I don't understand why you—" He saw how annoyed I felt by this outburst and begged my pardon. "Really, old chap," he said, "I don't mean to run down a man you like, but for the life of me I can't see what the deuce you find in common with Mr. Wilde. He's not well bred, to put it generously. He is hideously deformed. His head is the head of a criminally insane person. You know yourself he's been in an asylum." "So have I interrupted calmly. Lewis looked startled and confused for a moment, but recovered and slapped me heartily on the shoulder. "You were completely cured," he began, but I stopped him again. "I suppose you mean that I was simply acknowledged never to have been insane." "Of course, that's what I meant," he laughed. I disliked his laugh because I knew it was forced, but I nodded gaily and asked him where he was going. So it seems that Lewis also has problems with Mr. Wilde, but he likes his cousin Hildred and doesn't want to offend him. Hildred, as you can tell, is very offended. We also get some context that Mr. Wilde had also been in an asylum at some point, and there's a little bit of uneasiness when Hildred says that he was found to have never been insane, and Lewis is like, "Yeah, that's what I meant," implying that maybe Lewis is more privy to Hildred's mental condition than Hildred is. But again, Lewis doesn't want to offend his cousin, so he just goes along with it. Lewis says that he really wants to see Constance, so him and Hildred should go over to Hawberk's shop, and then the four of them can go out for a walk. When they arrive at Hawberk's shop, Lewis and Constance immediately begin doting over each other, and Hildred initially says that he wants to leave before deciding that it's probably best if he keeps an eye on the two. Again, the two of them have some greater effect on his grand scheme. Again, because this is a slightly futuristic New York, it says that in this timeline, they built these big terraces throughout the city that allow for these beautiful walks at sunset, elevated above the ground level of New York City. So as the four of them are walking on this terrace, Lewis is talking about his time in the military and explaining some of the things in the military, and at some point, Lewis and Constance go off for a walk on their own, leaving Hawberk and Hilbert alone. Hawberk tells Hilbert that he went to the location Mr. Wilde said the armor would be at, and sure enough, it was there. At this, Hilbert says, Mr. Wilde is a very intelligent man, I observed. I want to give him the credit of this most important discovery, continued Hobart, and I intend it shall be known that he is entitled to the fame of it. He won't thank you for that, I answered sharply. Please, say nothing about it. Do you know what it is worth? Said Hobart. No, $50 perhaps. It is valued at $500, but the owner of the Prince's Emblazoned will give $2,000 to the person who completes his suit. That reward also belongs to Mr. Wilde. He doesn't want it. He refuses it, I answered angrily. What do you know about Mr. Wilde? He doesn't need the money. He is rich, or will be richer than any living man except myself. What will we care for money then? What will we care, he and I, when what? Demanded Hobart, astonished. You will see, I replied, on my guard again. He looked at me narrowly, much as Dr. Archer used to, and I knew he thought I was mentally unsound. Perhaps it was fortunate for him that he did not use the word lunatic just then. No, I replied to his unspoken thought. I am not mentally weak. My mind is as healthy as Mr. Wilde's. I do not care to explain just yet what I have on hand, but it is an investment which will pay more than mere gold, silver, and precious stones. It will secure the happiness and prosperity of a continent. Yes, a hemisphere. Oh, said Hobart. And eventually, I continued more quietly, it will secure the happiness of the world. And incidentally, your own happiness and prosperity as well as Mr. Wilde's? Exactly. I smiled, but I could have throttled him for taking that tone. He looked at me in silence for a while, and then said very gently, Why don't you give up your books and studies, Mr. Castaigne, and take a tramp among the mountains somewhere or other? You used to be fond of fishing. Take a cast or two at the trout in the Wranglies. I don't care for fishing anymore, I answered without a shade of annoyance in my voice. You used to be fond of everything, he continued. Athletics, yachting, shooting, riding. I have never cared to ride since my fall, I said quietly. Ah, yes, your fall, he repeated, looking away from me. Something I really like about Chambers' stories, and this is prevalent through a lot of the stories in this anthology, is how much character he can give, like, side characters with just a few lines of dialogue. Because think about it this way, Hobart, Constance, Lewis, Hildred, they've all known each other for years, assumedly. And given Lewis's line earlier where he says, oh, well, you were declared sane, I mean, were never insane in the first place. It seems that the people around Hildred knew that there was probably something wrong with him, and there was probably a reason he got committed to an asylum. And now everyone around Hildred seems suspicious of Mr. Wilde and why Hildred is spending so much time with him. And there is so much unsaid in the line when Hobart says, and incidentally your own happiness and prosperity as well as Mr. Wilde's, indicating that Hobart suspects that Mr. Wilde is manipulating Hilbert to a degree. And in spite of this, Hobart was still willing to give Mr. Wilde the money and notoriety for the piece of armor that Mr. Wilde helped him locate. We also get a bit more of Hildred's hypocrisy. Earlier he said that after his fall he went from quiet and timid to outgoing and ambitious. But here we have mentioned that he doesn't really do anything anymore. He used to be into athletics, yachting, shooting, and riding, but now he just talks to Mr. Wilde. We also get a bit more of a look at what this plan is, what the Imperial Dynasty of America might be. As Hildred says soon, him and Mr. Wilde won't need money, as Mr. Wilde will be the second richest person in the world next to Hildred, and that this plan will eventually bring happiness to the entire world. We also see more signs of Hildred's anger coming through, and it's pretty apparent that Hobart cares about Hildred, but in spite of that, Hildred says it's good Hobart didn't choose to say the word lunatic, and says he could have choked him for Hobart using a certain tone of voice. After this interaction, Hilbert says, I thought this nonsense had gone far enough, so I brought the conversation back to Mr. Wilde, but he was scanning my face again in a manner highly offensive to me. Mr. Wilde, he repeated, do you know what he did this afternoon? He came downstairs and nailed a sign over the hall door next to mine. It read, Mr. Wilde, repairer of reputations, third bell. Do you know what a repairer of reputations can be? I do, I replied, suppressing the rage within. Oh, he said again. For one, this is more pointing out that Mr. Wilde is not actually a repairer of reputations. or isn't as prolific as he claims to be, because again, a guy with 5,000 men or 500 men in his employ who is doing work for like politicians and businessmen wouldn't just now be putting a sign up. But again, even a snide remark at Mr. Wilde's occupation makes Hildred angry. Constance and Lewis walk back, and the four of them begin to walk away. But after hearing Lewis and Constance sweet talk each other, Hildred remarks that it was time that he should speak of important matters with his cousin. We then skip forward some days or weeks, as Hildred is once again standing in his apartment wearing the crown. One morning early in May, I stood before the steel safe in my bedroom, trying on the golden jeweled crown. The diamonds flashed fire as I turned to the mirror, and the heavy beaten gold burned like a halo about my head. I remembered Camilla's agonized scream and the awful words echoing through the dim streets of Carcosa. They were the last lines in the first act, and I dared not think of what followed. Dared not, even in the spring sunshine, there in my own room, surrounded with familiar objects, reassured by the bustle from the street and the voices of the servants in the hallway outside. For those poisoned words had dropped slowly into my heart, as death sweat drops upon a bedsheet and is absorbed. Trembling, I put the diadem from my head and wiped my forehead, but I thought of Hastur and of my own rightful ambition. I remembered Mr. Wilde as I had last left him, his face all torn and bloody from the claws of that devil's creature, and what he said. Ah, what he said. The alarm bell in the safe began to whir harshly, and I knew my time was up, but I would not heed it, and replacing the flashing circlet upon my head, I turned defiantly to the mirror. I stood for a long time absorbed in the changing expression of my own eyes. The mirror reflected a face which was like my own, but wider, and so thin that I hardly recognized it. All the time I kept repeating between my clenched teeth, "The day has come, the day has come," while the alarm in the safe whirred and clamored, and the diamonds sparkled and flamed above my brow. I heard a door open, but did not heed it. It was only when I saw two faces in the mirror. It was only when another face rose over my shoulder and two other eyes met mine, I wheeled like a flash and seized a long knife from my dressing table, and my cousin sprang back very pale, crying, "Hildred, for God's sake!" Then as my hand fell, he said, "It's I, Lewis. Don't you know me?" I stood silent. I could not have spoken for my life. He walked up to me, took the knife from my hand. So again, Hildred is wearing the crown and thinking of Carcosa and the Yellow King, but this time he leaves it on for too long. It's interesting that he has to set an alarm to keep him from leaving the crown on for too long, but again, this time he ignores it. And we're given more clues as to this Yellow King story. Camilla can be assumed to be a character from the play. In the last lines of the first act, she screams in the streets of Carcosa. And again, this is before the play's second act that seems to draw people in and turn them mad. Words that even in Hildred's current state, he can't dare think about. When he says he looks in the mirror and sees a face that looks like his own, he says that the face is much thinner and wider, or in other words, much more pale. The pallid mask that was mentioned earlier, pallid has the same root word as pale. In other words, the mask is pale or white or ghostly. So it seems that here, after wearing the crown too long and looking in the mirror, it's almost as if Hildred sees a sickly version of himself that is beginning to take on characteristics like the pallid mask. And whatever this grand scheme is, as Hildred says, the day has come. And it takes Lewis showing up for him to snap out of it, and even then, it's after Hildred swings a knife at Lewis. Lewis is a trooper for putting up with this guy, by the way. When Lewis tells Hildred to take all of that off, Lewis remarks, "Take off that brass crown and toddle into the study." Then after this, Hildred says, "I was glad he thought the crown was made of brass and paste, yet I didn't like him any better for thinking so." And then while holding the crown, Lewis says, "It's dear at 50 cents, he said. "What's it for?" And then Hildred says, "I did not answer, but took the circlet from his hands and placing it in the safe, shut the massive steel door." So Lewis has twice referred to the crown as brass and worth 50 cents. Lewis could be wrong, or what I think is more likely is it's actually a worthless crown, but in Hildred's mind, it's a golden crown full of diamonds. I mean, it makes sense that that's in his head, because how would this guy afford like a super expensive crown otherwise? I mean, maybe if Mr. Wilde is right about being a repairer of reputations, but again, I'm pretty sure he's lying. Lewis also points out something interesting in Hildred's house when he says, "See here, old fellow," he began. I've got something to suggest to you. It's 4 years now that you've shut yourself up here like an owl, never going anywhere, never taking any healthy exercise, never doing a damn thing but poring over those books up there on the mantelpiece. He glanced along the row of shelves. Napoleon, 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 he read. For heaven's sake, have you nothing but Napoleons there? I wish they were bound in gold, I said. It seems that Hildred is wanting to adopt this mindset of a ruler, a rule that he thinks he is entitled to. And he's done nothing for the past few years except meet with Mr. Wild and read books about how to do that. But what's more interesting is what Hildred says right after. But wait, yes, there is another book. The King in Yellow. I looked him steadily in the eye. Have you never read it? I asked. No, thank God. I don't want to be driven crazy. I saw he regretted his speech as soon as he had uttered it. There is only one word which I loathe more than I do lunatic, and that word is crazy. But I controlled myself and asked him why he thought the King in Yellow dangerous. Oh, I don't know, he said hastily. I only remember the excitement it created and the denunciation from pulpit and press. I believe the author shot himself after bringing forth this monstrosity, didn't he? I understand he is still alive, I answered. That's probably true, he muttered. Bullets couldn't kill a fiend like that. It is a book of great truths, I said. Yes, he replied, of truths which send men frantic and blast their lives. I don't care if the thing is, as they say, the very supreme essence of art. It's a crime to have written it, and I, for one, shall never open its pages. Again, we have another mention of Hildred getting violent at words like lunatic and crazy. What's interesting is Lewis has also heard of The King in Yellow and has heard that anyone who has read it has gone insane. Again, certainly wouldn't apply to Hildred or anything. We never get more details about that whole mention of the author shooting himself but potentially being alive, but I think it more so goes to show no one knows where the book came from, and there's all these urban legends around who the author even is. Another detail here, and I might be reading too far into this, but Lewis says the exact same phrases that Hildred did when he introduced the King in Yellow in the first place. Specifically, when Lewis says the denunciations from pulpit and press, and when he says it contains the very supreme essence of art. Those are both direct quotes that Hildred had earlier in the story, which might be Hildred not really having a grasp of what the outside world has been doing in the past several years. So earlier, while attempting to sound stoic and like a point of information for the reader, he was just quoting what Lewis said. His grasp on the world isn't as concrete as he may want others to see. Lewis then says that the reason he has visited Hildred is to tell Hildred that he is to be married. And at this, Hildred says, I believe for a moment my heart ceased to beat, but I kept my eyes on his face. As you can imagine, Lewis is getting married to Constance. And again, all of this seems to be a major point of contention for Hildred. Lewis also says that his regiment is being moved tomorrow, so they're having the wedding tomorrow so that Constance can go with him. And not only that, but as a wedding present, he is being promoted to captain. So things are going comedically well for Lewis. I'm sure nothing bad will happen. Hildred continues to the reader and says, Then he told me where it was to be and who were to be there, and made me promise to come and be best man. It really is heartbreaking how much Lewis cares for Hildred. I set my teeth and listened to his boyish chatter without showing what I felt, but I was getting to the limit of my endurance, and when he jumped up and, switching his spurs till they jingled, said he must go, I did not detain him. There's one thing I want to ask of you, I said quietly. Out with it. It's promised, he laughed. I want you to meet me for a quarter of an hour's talk tonight. Of course, if you wish, he said, somewhat puzzled. Where? Anywhere. In the park there. What time, Hildred? Midnight. What in the name of... He began, but checked himself and laughed assented. I watched him go down the stairs and hurry away, saber banging at every stride. He turned into Bleecker Street, and I knew he was going to see Constance. So, if Lewis is getting married tomorrow, then Hildred's got to do whatever he needs to do tonight. And Lewis, being the kind cousin that he is, agrees to meet Hildred in the park at midnight. He then says, I gave him 10 minutes to disappear and then followed in his footsteps, taking with me the jeweled crown and the silken robe embroidered with the yellow sign. So here we see that the sign is a quite literal symbol, and he has a robe that has the symbol drawn on it. Hildred races to Mr. Wilde, being sure to dodge Lewis, Constance, and Hawberk in the shop below. And when he gets up to Mr. Wilde's room, it says, I knocked and entered without ceremony. Mr. Wilde lay groaning on the floor, his face covered with blood, his clothes torn to shreds. Drops of blood were scattered about
Yes,
over
got
the
the blue
carpet,
one.
which had also
Remember the
been
server
ripped and
clothes?
frayed in the evidently recent struggle. It's that
Nope, there we go.
cursed cat, he said, ceasing his groans and turning his colorless eyes towards me. She attacked me while I was asleep. I believe she will kill me yet. I think the reason that, you know, this is brought up in the story is because, you know, Wilde portrays himself as like such an eloquent man, above society even, who's going to launch a coup to enact the imperial dynasty of America, and that every politician's in his pocket and stuff like that. And the guy is constantly in a life or death battle with a cat. Hildred is furious at this and gets a hatchet from the pantry and begins to make his way through the apartment to kill the cat, but he can't find the cat, so instead he just decides to sit down. There's one interpretation of this story some people have, that the cat isn't even real.
I've never seen
and
this.
that
That's
it's
new.
just like a figment of Hildred, or collectively Hildred and Mr. Wilde's imagination, or like Yellow King influence or whatever, which I don't think is true, but is funny to imagine. Hildred begins to read the Imperial Dynasty of America, and when he's done, Mr. Wilde turns to a dark hallway in the apartment and calls for someone named Vance. And then a man who had just been crouching in the shadows this whole time stands up and walks over to the table. Vance, this is Mr. Castaigne, said Mr. Wilde. Before he had finished speaking, the man threw himself on the ground before the table, crying and grasping. Oh God, oh my God, help me, forgive me. Oh, Mr. Castaigne, keep that man away. You cannot mean it. You are different. Save me. I am broken down. I was in a madhouse, and now, when all was coming right, when I had forgotten the king in yellow, and but I shall go mad again. I shall go mad. His voice died into a choking rattle, for Mr. Wilde had leapt on him, and his right hand encircled the man's throat. When Vance fell in a heap on the floor, Mr. Wilde clambered nimbly into his chair again, and rubbing his mangled ears with the stump of his hand, turned to me and asked me for the ledger. I reached it down from the shelf, and he opened it. After a moment searching among the beautifully written pages, he coughed complacently and pointed to the name Vance. Vance, he read aloud. Osgood Oswald Vance. At the sound of his name, the man on the floor raised his head and turned a convulsive face to Mr. Wilde.
Actually, I think
His
I'm just
eyes
going to
were
sell that
injected
now.
with blood, his lips tumefied. Called April 28th, continued Mr. Wilde. Occupation, cashier in the Seaforth National Bank. Has served a term of forgery at Sing Sing, from whence he was transferred to the asylum for the criminal insane. Pardoned by the governor of New York and discharged from the
45
asylum.
mil plus 11 mil is 60 mil.
Reputation damaged at Sheepshed Bay.
2 hours?
Rumors
60 mil in
that
2
he
hours?
lives
Not bad, not
beyond his
bad.
income. Reputation to be repaired at once. Retainer, $1,500.
And then,
Note, has embezzled sums
Yeah.
amounting to $30,000 since March 20th, 1919. Excellent family and secured present
Yeah, so-
position through uncle's influence. Father, president of
and then how
Central
much
Bank. I looked
glossy
at the
did I
man
get?
on the floor.
33?
Get up,
That's
Vance.
actually not bad.
Mr. Wilde said in a gentle voice. Vance rose as if hypnotized.
That's
"You will
100
do
mil.
as we
100 mil in 2
suggest,"
hours, 50 mil an hour.
observed Mr. Wilde, and opening the manuscript, he read the
Okay, that's where I'm going to end stream. Hope you guys enjoyed. None of you guys really shut up. Love you. Bye-bye.